Can you subscribe to my new channel for support purposes? But the journey wasn't over yet. They still needed to find a way out of Kyra, to return to the world outside, to rebuild their lives. And with the knowledge they had gained, with the memories they had recovered, they would do just that. The days after their battle in the heart of the labyrinth were filled with both relief and uncertainty. The immediate threat had been neutralized, but the question of their future remained. The survivors of Kyra gathered together, sharing stories of their pasts, piecing together the fragments of their memories, and planning their next steps. Adim, who had emerged as a leader among them, spent his days exploring the outer edges of the labyrinth, searching for a way out. The machines that had once shifted and controlled the maze seemed to be dormant now, as if whatever force had been driving them had been quelled by the being's containment. Denise, though still recovering from her injuries, accompanied him on these expeditions. "It feels different now," she remarked as they walked through a section of the labyrinth that had once been a dangerous zone. "Like the labyrinth has lost its purpose." Adim nodded in agreement. "It was all connected to that being," he said. "Now that it is contained, the labyrinth has no reason to keep us here." They continued their search, and after several days they found what they had been looking for, a hidden passage that led beyond the walls of Kyra. The passage was ancient, covered in dust and debris, but it was a way out. Adim and Denise returned to the others with the news, and the decision was made to leave Kyra behind. It was a bittersweet moment. Kyra had been both a prison and a home, a place of fear and camaraderie. But now, it was time to move on. As they prepared to leave, Yusuf approached Adam, his expression thoughtful. "What do you think is out there?" he asked, gesturing toward the passage. Adim considered the question. "I don't know," he admitted, "but whatever it is better than staying here, trapped in a place that no longer holds us." Yusuf nodded, a faint smile on his lips. "You care right. It is time we moved on." The group gathered at the entrance to the passage, each of them carrying the weight of their experiences in Kyra, but also the hope of a new beginning. One by one, they stepped into the passage, leaving the labyrinth and its secrets behind. The passage was long and winding, leading them through dark tunnels and narrow corridors. But eventually they emerged into the light of day, finding themselves in a vast, open landscape. The world outside Kyra was wild and untamed, filled with possibilities and dangers, but they were ready. As they stood at the edge of this new world, Adam felt a sense of peace settle over him. They had survived the labyrinth, uncovered its mysteries, and defeated the being that had threatened them, and now they were free. Denise stepped up beside him, her eyes scanning the horizon. "So what now?" she asked. Adam smiled, feeling the warmth of the sun on his face. "We start over," he said. "We rebuild. We find others, and we make sure nothing like Kyra ever happens again." The others joined them, standing together as they faced the future. They had been tested, pushed to their limits, and they had come out stronger for it. And with that strength, they would create a new life, free from the shadows of the past. Together, they took their first steps into the unknown, leaving the labyrinth and the trials of Kyra far behind. But the memory of their journey, the lessons they had learned, and the bonds they had forged would stay with them forever. And whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as a family, united by their shared experience and their unbreakable resolve. For they were survivors, and they were ready to build a new world. Years passed, and the survivors of Kyra built a new life in the world beyond the labyrinth. They formed a community, welcoming others who had been lost, displaced, or seeking refuge. The story of their journey through the labyrinth, the battle against the ancient being, and the memories they had recovered became a legend, a tale of courage, resilience, and hope. Adam, now a respected leader in the community, often found himself reflecting on the past. He would walk to the edge of the settlement, looking out over the landscape that had once been unknown and hostile but was now home. Denise, Yusuf, Aisha, and Selim were always by his side, their bond unbreakable after everything they had endured together. They had all found their place in this new world, each contributing in their own way to the growth and prosperity of their community. And the memory of the labyrinth, while still vivid in their minds, no longer haunted them. It was a part of their history, a chapter that had been closed but never forgotten. One evening, as the sun set over the horizon, Adam stood with Denise, watching the sky turn shades of orange and pink. "Do you ever think about Kyra?" she asked, her voice soft. Adim nodded. "Sometimes, but not in the same way as before. It's more like a reminder of how far we've all come, how much we've all grown." Dennis smiled, leaning against him. "We were tested, and we survived. That is what matters." Adam wrapped his arm around her, feeling a deep sense of contentment. "Yeah, and now we're building something better, something that will last." As the stars began to appear in the night sky, The legend of Cairo lived on, not just in the stories they told, but in the lives they led. And with each passing day, they continued to build, to grow, and to thrive, knowing that whatever challenges the future might bring, they would face them together. For they were no longer prisoners of the labyrinth. They were free. Adam and his friends had come a long way since their escape from Cairo. The settlement they had built was thriving, a place of safety and hope for those who had been lost, like they once were. But despite the peace they had found, there were still nights when Adam was haunted by dreams of the labyrinth, of the ancient being they had contained, and of the mysteries that still lingered in the shadows of their past. The community had grown over the years, with new members joining as word of their safe haven spread. Each person brought their own stories of survival, of hardships faced in a world that had become increasingly unpredictable and dangerous. Together they worked to create a society built on trust, cooperation, and resilience. But even as they flourished, a part of Adam couldn't shake the feeling that something from their past was still out there, waiting. One morning, as the settlement bustled with activity, Salim approached Adam with a concerned expression. "Adam, we need to talk," he said quietly, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. Adam, sensing the urgency in his voice, nodded and led Salim to a quieter spot near the edge of the settlement. "What's going on?" he asked. Salim took a deep breath, clearly troubled. "I've been having dreams," he said, his voice low. "Not like before, not the memories. These are different. I think the labyrinth is calling to me." Adam's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" "It is hard to explain," Salim continued, his eyes distant as he tried to put his thoughts into words. "In the dreams, I'm back in the labyrinth, but it is not the same. The walls are darker, more oppressive, and the symbols, they are different. It's like the labyrinth is trying to tell me something important." Adam frowned. The uneasy had been feeling growing stronger. "Do you think it is connected to the being we contained?" Salim hesitated before nodding. "I don't know for sure, but it feels like it is. Like there's something we missed, something we didn't understand. And whatever it is, it's still out there." Adam considered this, his mind racing. The thought of returning to the labyrinth, to the place that had nearly destroyed them, was terrifying. But if Salim's dreams were a warning, they couldn't afford to ignore it. "We need to investigate," Adam said finally, his voice firm. "We can't let this go unchecked. If there's something still lurking in the labyrinth, we have to find out what it is and stop it." Salim nodded, relief in his eyes. "I was hoping you'd say that. I know it is dangerous, but we cannot just leave it alone." Adam agreed, and together they sought out Deniz, Yusuf, and Aisha to share what Salim had told him. The group gathered in a secluded part of the settlement, away from prying eyes and ears. Deniz listened carefully, her expression thoughtful. "If Salim's dreams are connected to the labyrinth, we need to be cautious. We don't know what we are dealing with." Yusuf, always pragmatic, crossed his arms and nodded. "We should prepare for the worst. If something goes as Salim, it could be a trap, or worse." Aisha, who had spent much of her time studying the ancient symbols they had encountered in the labyrinth, looked troubled. "There's still so much we don't know about that place. The symbols, the machines, and that being. They were part of something much larger, something we barely scratched the surface of." Adim looked around at his friends, the people he trusted more than anyone. They had faced unimaginable challenges together, and he knew they would do whatever it took to protect their home and their future. "We go back," he said, his voice steady. "But we do it carefully. We need to find out what is really going on and make sure it doesn't pose a threat to us or to anyone else." The decision was made. They would return to the labyrinth to confront whatever shadows of the past still lingered there. The journey back to the labyrinth was filled with a mixture of dread and determination. The five of them, Adam, Deniz, Yusuf, Aisha, and Salim, traveled light, carrying only the essentials. They moved sisals. As they approached the outskirts of Cairo, memories of their time there flooded back. The towering walls, the dark passageways, the constant fear of the unknown. But they were no longer the frightened survivors they had once been. They were stronger now, more experienced, and they had faced the worst the labyrinth had to offer. Or so they thought. When they arrived at the entrance to the labyrinth, Adim felt a chill run down his spine. The once imposing gates now stood slightly ajar, as if beckoning them inside. The air was thick with tension, and the silence was oppressive. "This place hasn't changed," Yusuf muttered, his eyes scanning the surroundings. "Still gives me the creeps." Aisha approached the gate cautiously, examining the symbols etched into the stone. "They symbols. They're different," she said, her voice tinged with concern. "They weren't here before." Salim stepped closer, his expression pained. "I've seen these in my dreams," he said quietly. "They bear warnings. but I don't know what they mean. Dines took a deep breath, her hand resting on the hilt of her weapon. Whatever there's in there, we face it together. We fear not leaving until we know the truth. With that, they stepped through the gates and into the labyrinth once more. The passageways were as dark and foreboding as they remembered, but there was something different about the atmosphere. The air felt heavier, and the walls seemed to close in on her. The symbols glowed faintly, casting eerie shadows on the stone. As they ventured further, the labyrinth began to shift around them, the walls moving in a way that felt almost deliberate. It was as if the maze itself was alive, responding to their presence. Selim led the way, guided by the strange pull he had felt in his dreams. He moved with a sense of purpose, as if he knew exactly where he was going, even though the path was constantly changing. They encountered the ancient machinery again, but this time it was different. The machines hummed with a low, ominous energy, their once rusted parts now gleaming with a strange light. The symbols on the walls pulsed in time with the machines, as if they were part of a larger system. "We're getting close," Selim said, his voice tight with anticipation. "It is just up ahead." Adim felt his heart race as they approached a large chamber, one that seemed to pulse with energy. The walls were covered in the strange symbols, and the air was thick with tension. At the center of the chamber was a massive structure, similar to the one they had encountered before, but even more complex. It was a towering machine, with gears and pipes that twisted and turned in intricate patterns. And beneath it there was another glass cylinder. But this time, the cylinder was empty. Adim's stomach dropped. "Where is the figure?" he asked, dread creeping into his voice. Don't forget to subscribe.